Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley 412, and today we're looking at this 9-game main slate for Saturday night. Please pay attention to the weather. It looks like this Miami-Atlanta game is probably the worst one that we have to be paying attention to. But it does look like there is, 20-30% chance of rain forecasted for quite a few other ones. So just have that on your radar. Uh, right up at the top, I mean, Scherzer, he's your SP1. I don't really think we have to go too much into this. Scherzer is Scherzer. He's going up against Washington, and they're struggling offense. I know they don't have the biggest strikeout rate, but I mean, he's still your SP1, regardless. As far as everybody else, like there's a lot of star-studded talent on this slate. Ohtani, Ray, Burns, Cease. I mean, that's a pretty solid top five for any slate. I have them ranked Ray right behind Caesar, Scherzer. Robbie Ray's just been incredible as of late. He finally got that strikeout rate back up to what we saw in previous seasons. He's just been phenomenal. He's not really allowing a lot of hard contact at all. He's just been doing great. He had pretty favorable matchups going up against the Angels twice, Washington. I guess you could even argue Cleveland. But he is going up against Cleveland once again, a team that he just faced, went 7 innings, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts. And he got an $800 salary discount from it because of it. So great. So I do think Robbie Ray is going to be my second favorite pitcher in this top tier. Behind him is going to be Burns, Cease, and then Ohtani. Ohtani's got a really tough matchup going up against Houston. I know he's great, but still a tough matchup going up against Houston, whereas, Burns and Cease are going up against lower offenses against Arizona and Minnesota. Ohtani, he is 10.5K. So, I mean, he's got the salary going against him. Cease, he has a pretty high walk rate. That's kind of why I have him ranked a little bit lower here. I know he's had some great games. He had a great 2-3 month stretch here. But still, the walk rate is a little bit concerning. So I'll take Burns over him in that top tier. In the mid tier, I think it's kind of where your SP2 is probably going to be coming from. I lean towards Adam Wainwright going up against the Cubs in St. Louis. Wouldn't shock me if this is kind of a pretty popular SP1, SP2. I also could definitely see people's SP2 going in one of these top four guys as well. Scherzer, Robbie Ray, also could see that being very popular. I'm curious to see where the ownership's going to shake out. But I think with where the salary price points are for the bats, it's going to be tough to fit in two top tier guys. But again, well, not again, but the bats themselves, they're pretty muddled, I think, after you get after like the top 2 or 3 teams. So maybe because there's not much difference between like the lower teams and like the mid-tier teams. So maybe you can get some cheap bats that way. So maybe you do go Scherzer and one of the top tier guys like Robbie Ray. Who knows? We'll see. I might even end up there myself. But in my initial build, it was Scherzer and Wainwright. Wainwright going up against the Cubs. We've kind of seen the ageless wonder perform his magic here and there all throughout the season. So I'd love him in that top tier or in that mid tier as my top play. Garcia, I have him next going up against the Angels. Just a great matchup going up against the Angels. Any pitcher going up against the Angels is great. However, his walk rate is quite concerning. He's got a walk rate over 10% so far this season, which is something you never want to see. So Garcia, well, I think he could have a fine outing here, rack up the Ks, get 6 or more strikeouts against this strikeout heavy Angels team at only 7.6K. I do worry a little bit about the hard contact that he does allow and that walk rate. So yeah, below him, Molly, Urias, and then Cabrera. Cabrera, I almost was going to put in the fade category, and you probably could put him in the fade category. He's just got such a great strikeout rate. And Atlanta strikes out a lot, but he also has a very high walk rate. He's got the highest walk rate on the entire slate. I mean, you can see it here. He's allowing a lot of walks, but he strikes so many guys out. So he does kind of have that floor, but it could certainly blow up in his face going up against Atlanta here and their elite offense. Molly coming off of the IL, right-hander going up against the White Sox. We like righties against the White Sox. But still, he allows quite a few fly balls, so maybe it's a little dangerous. More GPP. I guess I could throw Urias over Molly, but yeah. And then the cheap tier, Odorizzi's probably the only guy I have too much interest in, and even that's not super exciting. He just has such a low strikeout rate, but he is going up against Miami, who do strike out quite a bit, and it just don't have much power themselves and everything. But he has some control and he does allow a lot of home runs. However, like I said, Miami, they don't have a whole lot of power to them. So at only 6.1K, he's not going to burn you really anything. Your salary. So GPP, okay, but again, his ceiling is limited. But he can open up the bats for you. So that's kind of where the pitching wraps up. I mentioned that there's only like 2 or 3 teams that really stand out from the rest, and it's the Mets, St. Louis. That's pretty much it. Cheap Baltimore kind of stands out going up against Aller. I do fade Aller. I do not like to play him. I think he's not a great major league pitcher. So Baltimore, they have a couple of expensive bats. They got 3 guys over 5K, but after that, dirt cheap guys all around. So 3 guys over 5K, but after that, very cheap. Gunnar Henderson, this kid, 3 games in, taking the world by storm so far. He is certainly a guy that you can throw into your lineups, even your cash lineups, and really open things up in terms of value. So I do like Gunnar Henderson there. Third base, so let's hover Baltimore, St. Louis, and the New York Mets. These are the 3 teams that I was talking about earlier. Arenado, fantastic play today. However, 6.2 is a little bit pricey. It's going to be tough to fit him in, especially if you want to go another top tier pitcher alongside Scherzer. So half of your Arenado's price is Urias at 3.1K for Baltimore. Yeah, he's a downgrade, but still, Baltimore does have some cheap bats that can really open up the salary for you. And now I'm looking at 4.2 remaining for the remainder of my bats. At first base, you can go another cheap guy if you really want to. Albert Pujols, 2.5K. I mean, Albert Pujols is just kind of he's chugging along towards the home run milestone. So 2.5K there. Don't mind him. Obviously, Goldschmidt's in play. 6.5. It's going to be real tough to throw him in there. Pete Alonso going up against Corbin could probably be my favorite of the first baseman. 5.5K. So is a little bit pricey. But Marte, I would throw him as well in the outfield of this Mets stack. So I think the Mets are my favorite stack. I like Baltimore as like a nice cheap play. So pairing in the New York Mets and Baltimore in cash, I think is totally fine. You can kind of see like St. Louis, they're pricey. Arenado is over 6K, Goldschmidt's over 6K, O'Neill, Edman are over 5K, and then even like their cheaper guys are still in the mid to upper 4K range. So as I'm like talking here, maybe I want to throw St. Louis and throw them more into the GPP build, just because it's going to be real tough to throw in the Mets and St. Louis. But I do think Atlanta just fits kind of right in there with St. Louis, in that they're a team that they, while they do strike out a lot, I mentioned Cabrera walks a lot of guys and he can allow some heavy contact. So Atlanta, I think, is an elite offense. They're very pricey. It's going to be tough to jam them in, but maybe you go down as you're at SP2, or maybe you get off of Scherzer, whatever you want to do. But I think Atlanta and St. Louis can kind of fit in as your top 2 GPP plays, kind of as I'm talking. But Milwaukee, I think, is just in another great spot going up against Bumgarner. He just has so many great bats, and look how cheap they are. I love it. I love it. Super cheap. Only one guy over 5.2. Only one guy or over 4.2K. So Hunter Renfroe, he's definitely in there. Andrew McCutchen for sure. All those guys. So you can see I'm building a kind of nice little lineup here. This is not a core by any means, but it's just kind of guiding you in the right direction. Some other cheap plays that just kind of stood out to me as I was building for the Chicago White Sox in the outfield. Gavin Sheets, lefty righty. I think, how expensive was he? 2.8K, going up against Molly. And then after Molly gets out of there, that Minnesota bullpen. So I do like Gavin Sheets in this spot here. He's doing pretty well as of late. So yeah, so I mean that kind of covers everything. It's a muddied slate in terms of bats. I mentioned it earlier. You got the Mets. They're clear cut, the top dog going up against Corbin. I think St. Louis is right behind them as my second favorite stack on the entire slate. Baltimore really opens things up, so I do like Baltimore. And those are kind of like the 3 teams I would be targeting quite a bit. But again, Atlanta, fantastic GPP play. Milwaukee, very affordable and a nice spot as well. So Dodgers, Seattle, Chicago White Sox, just kind of round things out here. Not a whole lot of interest. I'm probably going to be sticking with these 4 and then Baltimore as my 5 teams I'm really going to be focusing on heavily in my lineups today. So that kind of wraps things up. Hopefully this helps you guide you in the right direction. And thanks for watching. Good luck in your contests, and we'll see you in the next video.